Welcome to the grand finals of Draft of Empires. This is a $1,400 prize pool 1v1 event hosted by Blade555. I'll put all corresponding links down in the description for his channel, so make sure you check him out, make sure you share some love to him for putting this together. We have Beasty facing off against Anotand over here. Anotand is playing as the blue Mongols on the right side. Left side is going to be Beasty with the Jeanne d'Arc civilization in yellow. The map we're playing on is Bohemia, which is a quite heavily altered version of Dry Arabia. You see we have a lot of these tiny cliffs. Most of the hunt is centered around the middle. You actually have small packs of hunt as well. And there's a lot of gold positioned towards the middle as well. Now, in this tournament, players pick civilizations for each other. So Mongols as a civilization was given to Anand by Beasty, and Beasty received Jeanne d'Arc from Anand. And this is a tough matchup to call, partly because we didn't really see much of this civilization matchup prior to this point in the tournament. Mongols, in general, is a good civilization against the French. And it starts off by, of course, being able to aggress the gold mine and cut them off from the early knights that way. We don't actually... Actually, there is the barracks. Okay, never mind. For a moment, I thought Anand isn't going to go for that. But he must. Even just 2 spearmen harassing this gold mine would be immensely valuable. Again, you could play a lot of mental games with the civilization matchups over here. But I feel like whenever you get into the civ matchup as a Mongol player, you must pressure that gold mine. There's also going to be a tower coming up. I'm actually curious about the mindset of Beasty giving the Mongols to Anand. This is a map that's very open. So I feel like there could be this element where he just says, look, I am playing... Well, of course, he doesn't know what civilization he's getting until both of them have submitted that. But whatever he's getting, he probably wants to play a raiding game in a very open map like this. So if you want your opponent to struggle against that, one way to pick the civilizations is such that you give your opponent the Mongols, meaning that they won't be able to wall. Now, Spearmen will be coming through, and as I said, in this matchup, Mongols are going to be more than happy to have those Spearmen out there deny the gold mine. Little side note, Beasty went for the gold with 4 veils. He's doing this so that he can get enough gold to be able to afford a single knight, and he now even cancels the mining camp. I think he's a little low on gold for the first knight, that's why he's a little resilient over here. Might even lose a villager as a consequence, but looks like all the villagers will make it back home, as they should. This is critical for Beasty. The key concept of this Spearman Tower rush against the French is that the French player cannot get a single knight out. And let's not forget, you will have Jeanne d'Arc as well as a melee unit or potentially an archer. So you will not only have that one knight out there, you're also going to have a Jeanne d'Arc, of course, who is, by the way, getting a lot of XP from building this landmark. And the landmark is also constructed a lot faster when Jeanne is part of the building crew. Tower on the gold mine means that Beasty won't have access to this. And what's unlucky for him is that his secondary gold mine is also right next to this one. So this is a great position for Anand to be in. Means that Beasty isn't going to be able to access either of his gold mines initially. Now, back in the past, when we saw this Mongol Tower Rush build order being used very frequently against French in tournaments, Mista pioneered the build where scouts were made to act as torch units, and the defending French player just goes for a couple of archers to pick off the spearmen. That allows you to take out the tower quickly and get your gold mine back. That's definitely an avenue through which Beasty could go. And he's very heavy on wood, so we are probably going to have an archer range here upon hitting Feudal Age. But I'm actually curious if he's going to go scouts. He also has Jeanne d'Arc as well, which could be used as an anti-spearman unit, as long as the spearmen are outside a tower, of course. I think the big question mark right now for Beasty is the type of torch unit that he can go for. Deerstone's on the way for Anand as his age-up landmark. He's pretty heavy on the gold still, makes me wonder what exactly the plan is. I feel like playing a semi-fast castle here against the French is kind of suicidal, but it might not be impossible. I feel like it's more likely that we're just going to see keshik, and I like that quite a bit. Normally, keshik versus knight isn't necessarily a matchup you want to do for a long time with the Mongols, But when your opponent has essentially no knights to work with, and they are delayed on their progress towards knights, you can actually play heavy into the keshik, especially because, as we see, there's going to be a heavy commitment towards ranges. There's the blacksmith, and looks like we're just going to have a horseman from Beasty. That's still going to act as your torch unit, but for the time being, Beasty does not have any gold income. But I love how Jean is actually being sent forward. It's targeting the boar because you want to level up Jean as much as possible. So being able to kill these boars is actually immensely valuable. The Khan might find the whole thing, but there is also a horseman nearby, so Khan should not be able to intervene, and Jean should be getting her 50 XP for this. Horseman, it's able to push away this Khan, and the Khan needs to be careful not to get picked off over here. 2 more spearmen will make it to the battlefield very soon from this barracks. But yeah, there's the stable coming up for Anand. Wheelbarrow also on the way, but he's still heavy on the gold. Means that we will see keshik eventually. Whoops. Bit of a bad pathfinding here for Beasty. We'll end up losing a horseman as a consequence. And Beasty actually moved towards a little stone, only mining it with 1 villager. This is only going to be a tower for arrow slits on a tower. The big question is where the arrow slits tower goes up. I would think that he's eventually going to torch this down. Maybe he was just gonna pull villagers. Maybe he was just going to pull 20 villas, torch it down, make a defensive tower. Or maybe he's thinking about something crazy like moving out to one of these gold mines. It would be a very crazy move to do, but you never know. Okay, now he's heavy on the stone, so we might actually have a second TC. On the other side, keshik on the way. No double production, somewhat surprisingly for Anand. This is a weird choice, given that keshik are pretty expensive. If there's any unit where you want to use double production, that's probably the keshik. So I'm somewhat puzzled as to why Anand opted to just make a single keshik and not moved the stable close to the Ovu. I'm unsure right now. Anyway, he might be afraid of these units denying the placement of the stable right next to the Ovu. But for the time being, that's not really a threat, so I'm definitely puzzled about him paying full price for these keshik. Early wars coming in here from Beasty. He doesn't have much of a cavalry force, and he's afraid of the keshik, so he's going to wall himself up from the north. I love this a lot, especially because he probably wants to take this hunt eventually. But his big concern to this point is gold. He does have a lot of stone now, ready to drop a TC. I think he's heading towards the food. Keshik make it to the battlefield just now, and Jean is the only unit that's actually somewhat competitive against those keshik. Archers won't do much, horsemen won't do much either. And this is looking like a good game for Anand, if you ask me. Imagine if those keshik came in batches of 2. We could be seeing 5 or 6 keshik here, instead of just having 3 on the battlefield. This is so awkward for Anand. The only justification for this would be if he wants to go super heavy on the archers, and he's just saving up stone for this. That's the only thing I can think of, seeing this range in the radius of the Ovu. But I feel like it's such a big missed opportunity, not having double the keshik than what you have right now. Beast's army is exclusively archers and horsemen. If you had 6 or 7 keshik here, that would be a devastating force. Still, at least the stone is there, so you can quickly turn that into archers, and we could see a massive build-up of a mass archers here for Anand. Remember, Beasty still does not have access to gold, and as long as that remains the case, mass archers works very well against the French. Beasty needs to find a way to access gold, but he still hasn't yet moved towards any of these towers or towards any of the neutral gold mines. Love Anand going for the boar here. He uses the map control that he's given by Beasty. So he's going to take the hunt, he's going to take the boar. As I said, the only thing I'm kind of disliking here is that I would have preferred him going for double production on the keshik and single production on the archers. Maybe go for a second range, double produce archers, or single produce archers on double ranges, and then go for batches of 2 keshik. Anand is also playing this a little passively. Makes me feel like he's playing this wait-and-see approach. For now, he's building up his archer mass. But I think he knows fully well that Beasty doesn't have access to gold, and he's playing for a gold denial. Now, this is a dicey call here. Because right now he's got an advantage. A respectable advantage, that is. He's got Keshik, which is a premium unit. He's got double the army value right now compared to Beasty. But he's not using it to anything. And that's kind of a missed opportunity. At the same time, as long as Beasty doesn't have access to gold, he cannot go up to Castle Age, he cannot access knights. So Anand might be happy with that status quo. Slight side note is that Beasty opted to go for the consecration on the town center, so the villagers are costing less. It's a nice little touch. He has that for both of the TCs. So for this 2 TC boom, he actually does have a pretty significant discount on the villagers. Beasty also catches a glimpse of this army, now knows the exact size and scale of Anatand's army. But he also knows that Anand isn't really using that for anything. And remember, this map is open, and Anand cannot wall this. So eventually, Beasty could capitalize on these raids. I also kind of dislike how some of these villagers are on the berries, to be honest. When you have all this hunt, might as well send out all the vills there. I feel like, again, you're kind of missing an opportunity here for Anand. You weaken your food eco by actually being on berries. And finally, Beasty's gonna call the villagers. He's going to take the archers as well. This is where Anand has to go. The only reason for him to hold back this army was to force one decisive engagement when this push happens on the tower. Spearman will pop out, nicely focusing down the scout, but now we'll disengage. Here comes the army, and Anand is bailing on this. I dislike this greatly. I feel like the only reason... Okay, there he goes. Never mind. For a moment, I thought he's going to bail on this, but he cannot give Beasty gold. If he gives Beasty gold, he missed the opportunity that came from him denying that gold for essentially 6-7 minutes of this game. Looks like Anand lost a couple of villagers back at home to these raids. Kind of a foreshadowing what will happen if Beasty gets access to knights. I'm just so puzzled about Anand being so hesitant to engage this. It would help a lot if he had a couple more keshik to work with. Yeah, Falcon has been deployed. He wants to see what Beasty's up to, and Beasty's getting access to a lot of gold. It almost becomes a now or never, because now Beasty's getting access to critical upgrades. Blacksmith upgrades could come in, and now Anand is charging in. Jeanne d'Arc being focused down over here. Area attack popped out by Beasty. Archers fighting this one. Speed arrow also coming in for the con. I mean, attack speed arrow, that is. And the tower is being denied. This is as good as it gets for Anand. This is what he needs to rinse and repeat and deny Beasty from this gold. I would love to see a second tower being dropped here, actually, for him. And off the back of this, he's now getting to Castle Age. This is where Anand probably should go Castle, get the tech advantage for his archers, and that would make it very difficult for Beasty to ever push this one strongly held position. Beasty now has one knight out there, that's all that he could afford. I wouldn't mind Beasty trying to somehow sneak out, because Anand is keeping his con alongside his army. Anand has no vision on these gold mines. It would be risky for Beasty to sneak out, but I think we're getting to the stage where he probably should consider doing that. Anand, he's still floating a lot of resources, needs to spend that on something. Either go up to the next stage, or he needs to make more units. He's kind of low on gold, and now he's sent a bunch of villagers on it. So I'm fairly certain that he just wants to rush Castle here. But that one knight sneaks out, and that's exactly how Beasty can come back into this game. Cause chaos, and kind of pull away the focus from your base. Looks like Anand is shifting focus, though. He's gonna try to hit the food eco here. I'm not so sure about this. I feel like you can keep playing this gold denial game, as crazy as it sounds like. And now, Anand is doubling down on the aggression. I think he needs to make up his mind. If he wants to go Castle, stop making units. If he wants to continue aggressing, then spend all the resources. But I feel like he's kind of caught in between right now. He's trying to play aggressive, but he's also not getting a tech advantage. And Beasty is pulling ahead in terms of eco. If Beasty gets access to that gold mine, his position is going to be so much better. A defensive tower would be nice on this gold mine for Anand, because these cavalry raids are oppressive, and when Beasty has 2 villager kills and Anand only has, well, only has 3, despite Anand being the aggressor for most of this game, that's a bad look for Anand. He's gonna burn his way through the walls. I don't like fighting under this DC here. I feel like now Anand is a little overzealous, taking this engagement Archers are actually very close to Jeanne d'Arc over here. Not a good fight for Anand, if you ask me. Might still be salvaged by the keshik if all the spearmen are gone. But this could have been a better fight elsewhere, I feel. Keshik can still close the distance on the archers, though. Jeanne d'Arc now out there as a knight. Archers slowly being decimated by the town center fire, though. And that town center is actually making a big difference between these two fighting armies. Reinforcements now coming in here for Anand, though. He still has 11 keshik on the field. And this might be just enough for him. Archers doing the right thing, focusing down the archers from the other side. Jean rallying the champions as well. But Beasty, he's losing his forces here, and if he does, he's going to have his lumberjacks exposed, his food villagers exposed as well. Anand needs to capitalize on this, though. If he loses this army and he doesn't deny the gold, Beasty's gonna win this game, I feel. And I think that's the case. I think this push is stalling out. Beasty, the moment he saw the army swinging to the north, he's sending villagers to the gold, and Beasty's gonna have access to knights. Oh, this is such a hard game to call. But I feel like Anand was at the wrong place at the wrong time. That's my feeling about this game. It's obviously hard to judge when you don't see the entire map like I do when casting. He has limited vision, and he might have thought, or he might have evaluated the situation differently. But in retrospect, as long as he kept denying the gold, he was in a great spot. He could have gone up to Castle Age, get the step out, picked up all the relics to offset the eco deficit, and then, with the tech advantage he has, he can keep denying this gold mine. I think that would have worked. But he decided to become a little overzealous, potentially. Went underneath the enemy town center, and just got so much damage done to many of his units from the TC fire that Beasty was able to hold off the army. And now Anand, he has half the army of Beasties. Population looking a lot better for Beasty as well. Anand nowhere close to Castle Age. He's being denied of this hunt. Momentum swing was just massive here. Love how Anand is moving towards this board, though. This is, I think, a right call. Beasty's army is still mostly infantry. In fact, the only high mobility unit is Jeanne d'Arc herself. But now Anand is in a very tough spot. His composition is no longer functional. Production buildings aren't producing anything even. I feel like Anand has hit this rock bottom where he's just like, okay, what next? Keshik rate is nice, but it's just too little too late. Only 3 Keshik, many of them heavily damaged. If this boar expansion ever gets found, it's catastrophic for Anand. He's still on berries, no pastures, no sustainability in terms of food eco. And another range coming in, which is nice and cool, but we don't see the food being available to produce these units in the long run. He's doing the right thing, raiding with the Keshik here. This is a really good raid. It's just that it's a little too insufficient. Beasty's in the middle of farm transition, which can slow him down here a little. Could give some breathing room here for Anand. But again, if Anand ever finds this boar expansion, or if Beasty actually finds that boar expansion, beg your pardon, then Anand's food eco is going to collapse. And I think that moment might be approaching very soon. Yeah, indeed. Beasty's heading there. Beasty should know that Anand doesn't have a sustainable food eco. At the very least, he can probe this boar, and he's going to be rewarded with a bunch of villager picks. This move might very well seal the deal here for Anand. Losing way too many villagers, now he's down by 20. Indeed, he's going to tap out of this game. And Beasty secures game number 1 off the back of a strong defense and maybe a slightly overzealous attack from Anand against that town center. This is one of the weirdest games I've called. It might not have seemed like it, but this was such an awkward position where the gold was denied for so long from Beasty. And I think it would have been enough. Anand can match Beasty's archer numbers. He even has the Keshik as the only heavy cavalry unit in the game in Feudal Age that the players had access to, because Beasty didn't have access to his own knights. As long as he keeps denying the gold mine, he's in a great spot. I just feel like he doubled down on the aggression, but he chose the wrong position, perhaps. He attacked the north. The moment he did that, his opponent got access to the gold. But also, he had a very long engagement under a town center. And when you look at this army curve, this just looks bad for Anand. He had a lot of premium units. Keshiks those were, yet he still lost way more units than Beasty did. Probably the difference maker was the town center, but still, the conclusion is that he had an army advantage over here, not just numbers-wise, but quality-wise as well. And he took a bad fight, a fight that he probably shouldn't have taken, and that fight probably finished the game for him. From that point on, there was just no recovery. All right, we'll be heading into game number 2 here. This is a best of 5, once again hosted by Blade. Make sure you check out his channel. I will leave a link down in the description of this video. Give some love to him for bringing us this tournament. And if you enjoy my casts, then I also greatly appreciate if you subscribe to this channel. It helps me greatly, as we'll be heading into game number 2 in a brief moment. And it looks like we are heading to forts. We will have Beasty spawning in on the right side with the color yellow, and to the left it is going to be Anand playing as the blue. It is Byzantines for both of these players on the map forts. It is a 1-0 lead in this best of 5, the grand finals of Draft of Empires for Beasty. Let's take a look at how a Byzantine mirror plays out. Again, as a reminder, you pick civilizations for the opponent in this tournament. You cannot repeat the civilization. So that means that you cannot give the same civilization twice to your opponent. And Byzantines has been a pretty popular pick by players to their opponents. This is the first time I'm seeing a Byzantine mirror, though, in this tournament. I'm curious how this works out, especially because Beasty, at least in one of the previous sets that I've seen from him, he used a different build for the Byzantines. He went early berries into the Hippodrome. Looks like he's on sheep, though. So it likely will just be the standard Vineries build on both of the sides. For now, nothing unconventional here between these two players. Standard cistern placement for both of these. Of course, with the cistern covering all your critical resources, you're able to have that plus 5% efficiency boost for all of the resources that you're about to gather. Makes it a little easier to get a second town center going, something that I do expect from both of these players. Now, looking at the map here, this is definitely an awkward spawn for this map. Boars are essentially identical for both players. Hunt is a little awkward. Now, I'm thinking that this is the hunt, the secondary hunt that belongs to Anand, and this is the secondary hunt that belongs to Beasty. I don't know which of these is better, because it kind of feels like these two hunt patches are essentially just neutral in the middle of the playing field. Big gold mines also looking interesting. There is one deposit safe at the north, and then there is a lot of gold here in the middle. This is going to be a big fighting ground, especially if the game goes long. Looks like Anand is going to play with the Hippodrome, though. So very different approaches taken here by the two players. Beasty playing into the vineyards. Could technically be sell the olive oil fast castle, but it's more likely that we're going to see this horseman plus longbowman combination. Though against Byzantines, especially if he sees the Hippodrome, we might see a different mercenary contract. On the other side, Hippodrome is definitely a sign of aggression here from Anand. And given that you have a limited amount of resources inside your safe base, the game plan here for Anand is clear. He wants to establish map control with the cavalry coming from the Hippodrome, and then use that map control to limit Beasty's expansion, while also allowing himself to expand towards this secondary patch of Hunt. This is a lovely town center spot, by the way. You can drop a TC here, it's going to be close to the berries, the wood, even some gold. On the other side, Beasty has a similar spot, wood, berries, and Hunt, all pretty close to that potential town center spot. Beasty's playing on 2 TCs, or he will be playing on 2 TCs, I should say. He's mining stone. On the other side, Anand does not have much of a stone income. He might still opt to go for a second TC that will be delayed, but for now he's going to play into the Hippodrome, and he's going to be the first one putting some cavalry on the field. First horseman out, as we're going to have Anand move towards the berries pretty soon. He's still heavy on wood. Makes me wonder if he wants a second production building, maybe a range, or maybe even a mercenary camp at this point. He might just say, look, I have the cavalry numbers advantage initially. I want to supplement that with a couple of longbows, so you cannot just hold my raids with Limitane. It's going to be an early wheelbarrow from Anand as well, off the back of that mill. Still taking stragglers, no lumber camp for him. Definitely not a conventional build order with the Byzantines on this map, not something that we've seen very commonly from players. Beastie's playing a lot more old school, as much as you can call this build old school on a brand new map with a brand new civilization, but this is definitely an approach that has been used by a lot more players. Wars are quick, means that the horseman cannot come through, quick reaction by Beastie. He does have the barracks out, so he can start pumping out his own spearmen. This condensed base just makes it very difficult for Anand to raid, and I feel like he shouldn't really be prioritizing picking villas as they are inside the base. This is a great position of harassment though. Deny the berries, deny the olive oil, especially given that your opponent went with the Grand Vinery. If you deny the olive oil income, that is massive. Cistern being placed here by Beastie also signifies that he wants to go on these berries very quickly. But right now for Anand, there are two objectives. Contain Beastie inside his base, deny the expansion with the second TC, and also deny these berries. Looks like it's just going to be a range and archers, so a build that's very similar to the French knight and archer build. Just go for cavalry from the hippodrome and a couple of archers. It's all about containing Beastie inside his base. And by the way, Beastie did not finish the aqueducts connecting the two cisterns, so he's not getting the plus 10% bonus on either of these villagers. That's a little disappointing. He needs to realize this at some point, because that's actually some loss of efficiency. Spearmen are escorting the villagers outside. Anand does not have vision on this. He does have his scout nearby. He might actually catch a glimpse of the vills. I think the spearmen coming so far out of the base should be a telling sign for him that his opponent is moving out. But with no archers nearby, he doesn't have the tools to stop this expansion. Love the TC spot from Beastie. Probably could have been better if the TC is right here. Boar being aggroed, but I think it's way too far away. Anand, that's a boar that's way too far away. I think Anand would have been better off killing the deer far away from the TC, decreasing the efficiency of that town center. Nice little brace from the Limitane. And that's a scout going down as well. Beastie taking a monstrous engagement here. Town center finishes just before the arrival of the first archer. Beastie even yoinks that one sheep. Poor sheepy. Now he's gone. Interesting to see how Beastie isn't even taking any of these berries. He's probably a little afraid of this stealth forest and the units that could potentially be hiding about, or hiding in that stealth forest, I should say. He doesn't need to, but right now he's got basically no olive oil income. So if he wanted to get himself some olive oil, this would be a berry patch that's great to use. But again, this stealth forest is kind of scary right next to it. Love how he's herding the deer close to the mill with the Limitani. It's such a small detail. Yet it's, again, an increase of efficiency, and I just appreciate when players all do that. Those are the difference makers between good players and great players. For now, Anand is building heavily into the archers, though he's got 10 of them. And he's moving out towards the boar. Lovely move. I like that a lot. He is not on stone. He does have a little stone because he's getting some passive stone income from building buildings, but he isn't going to play on 2 TCs. Archer is kind of lurking around over here, but the walls are already completed by Beastie. I would actually love to see some walls here from Beastie as well, because if he makes those walls, it is surprisingly difficult to put up aggression against this position. Right now, my concern for Anand is that I just don't see where this game is going for him. He is making horsemen, he's making archers, this is nice and cool. But there's this principle where if you don't use the army that you make, then you will lose the game. That's actually a nice, almost pick on a villager. I think he might have gotten the kill because there's a villager killed there in the KD column. But yeah, right now Anand needs to use this army for something. Because Beastie is investing resources into his eco. Anand is investing resources into an army. That army needs to find value for itself. This is good value here. Villager has been picked off. Beastie tried walling this, but Anand is just not letting him. Anand is still on a boar, and given that now he is outnumbered in terms of villagers, I think he should be contemplating a castle age here. He's also missing out on a bunch of extra resources simply by not connecting the two cisterns. He's also missing out on a lot of production, by the way. You see, right now, an archer takes 12 seconds to produce with a 20% discount from the cistern. If you connected these two, it would be a 40% discount. Anand is actually missing out on a lot of production speed. Okay, now he's connecting them. We'll actually see how much it decreases. It's gonna be 12 seconds. Actually, never mind. That's going to be even lower. It's going to be... It was 19 for the horseman. It was 12 for the archers. It's going to decrease even more so. Let's take a look. Hello? Archers, yeah, 11 seconds. Probably not that big of a deal. The bigger thing is, of course, the eco boost. Plus 10% instead of plus 5%. I honestly anticipated a slightly higher benefit, I guess, from connecting these. But at the end of the day, it's really the eco boost that you are trying to leverage the most. Now again, he needs to play aggressive here if he is not going castle, and he's going to do that with the Hero Siphon. Now these boys are beastly. If he has a couple of these, he can easily take this expansion TC out. But we have quite a few towers coming in here for Beastie. He's going to be able to garrison most of the vills. And also, he is already building some fortifications on... Well, not fortifications just yet, but arrow slits are already completed on both of these. And I think he wants to fortify these outposts if he can, or when he can. Nice little diversion with the cavalry here. Break through the walls, probe that berry patch. But no one's home. So for the time being, Anand couldn't do any damage. Beastie is still very heavy on the Limitani. But don't forget, these guys have the shield wall ability, which makes them a lot better when it comes to encountering archers. See, the range damage taken decreased by minus 50%. Means that it's a lot more difficult to pick them off with archers. It's not impossible, especially when you have 23 archers in your army, but it's not as clear-cut as it would be in the case of ordinary spearmen. Here come the Hero Siphon. Beastie's numbers are still not very promising army-wise, and that tower is just getting a little blaze in an instant. Hero Siphon, of course, powerful as ever. First tower goes down. Second tower should be the second target. Quickly get rid of that. Beastie cannot garrison all the vills. He's going to lose some of them as the cavalry charges in from the north. Limitani coming in with the shield wall. Archers need to focus them before the cavalry engages, but the tower is already on fire. Villagers have been popped out to try and take out the Hero Siphon. Slowly the Limitani get picked off. Town Center is still alive, though one of the Hero Siphon is down. And the cavalry from Anand is disappearing. The Limitani with the shield wall might be doing enough to repel this attack. Town Center is still alive, outpost a little blaze, but the Hero Siphon is pushed back. And Beastie, he lives to see another day. This is just as good as it gets for a Byzantine defense. Beastie didn't have the numbers, he didn't even have the composition, I feel. But he's using the shield wall to essentially take this archer element out of the game. At least partially. And now, with the archers partially taken out of the equation, he was able to rally the villagers, take out the Hero Siphon. Now, the bad news for Beastie is that this was way too pricey for him. 20 villagers lost. I'm not gonna lie, that might be enough for Anand to win the game, especially because Beastie's army is also gone. When Beastie repelled this attack, this felt a little bit more convincing. And he still has 2 TC, so he's got a recovery arc. But Beastie has taken a big beating here. There's gonna be one more opportunity at least for Anand to finish this game. Beastie's grabbing the mercenary contract, but he doesn't have enough olive oil to get any of the longbows out. So all he has is a single Limitani and a single horseman. It all comes down to when Anand pushes this. If Beastie's given enough time to get some longbows out, he's gonna be able to pick off the archers from a distance and once again rally villagers to take down the Hero Siphon. If Beastie's given time, he's got a chance at this game. For Anand, time is of the essence, and he needs to finish this game in the next few minutes. If he does, I think he's got a great chance, and I think he's doing the right thing right now. Very aggressive posturing. He's gonna target the tower, that's the easy target. And indeed, he needs to commit against this one. Just needs to make sure that anytime villagers pop out to kill the Hero Siphon, you just dive in, pick off the veils with the archers. And I think Anand should know that Beastie's in a tough spot, given how little he's sending to deal with this aggression. There's the mercenary camp. Beasty's getting the first batch of longbowmen out. We know that Beasty is exceptional in defense. We have seen that in the previous game as well. This time around, the difference is that Anatand's position is a lot better than what it was in the previous game. In the previous game, it was exceptional as well, but here, Beasty's position is precarious. He doesn't have the tools to even repair this town center anymore. He doesn't have the wood income to repair the TC. He doesn't have the wood income to make his own archers. And I think he's going to have to bail out on this position. And when he does, he's going to be 6 villagers behind, and quite some army as well. More archers are coming in here from Anand. I just love the approach that he's taking over here. Aggressive, but I love how he's using the hero siphon, and I love how he just went mass archers. Not longbows with the mercenary camp, just mass archers. And especially after dealing with the initial wave of Limitani, he was able to get a lot of valuable damage done here. First fight was kind of lackluster for him, but he was able to pick off 20 vills from Beasty. And more importantly, he cut Beasty off from wood. Beasty wasn't really able to make new horsemen. Beasty wasn't really able to make new archers even from his ranges. Now, I think Beasty right now is in the phase of like rest and regroup. And he's just saying, look, I give up this position. My position in this game is tough. But right now, his best chance is playing this patient, condensing his base and forcing a similar engagement to the one that we have seen in game number 1. Because Anand still needs to push this. One thing that we shouldn't underestimate is that Anand probably doesn't know the exact amount of villagers he killed. He might think that he actually has the vill lead now, but Beast had a second TC for too long. If Anand isn't fully aware of this villager advantage he has, he might still feel like there is an urgency for him to finish this game quickly because he thinks that Beasty has the eco advantage. In reality, Beasty doesn't, so right now Anand could just sit back and chill. But that's not something that he might be fully aware of. I still think he's doing the right thing. If you make army, use it. He's going to push up with the hero siphon. A lot of the production buildings are out here, so Beasty, if he doesn't take this fight, he's going to lose his production buildings. Could even lose his aqueduct, and then he loses his massive bonus here for the eco. Beasty's got another batch of longbows coming in soon, though. Numbers could equalize with those longbows, especially when you consider that you have the range advantage. Beasty's kind of playing a reverse Scorched Earth tactics. It's not him scorching the earth, it's the opponent. But he's just forfeiting ground to buy some time. And would you look at this, some mercenaries popping out from somewhere else. Jugenu on the way. Anand has been kind of quiet on the mercenary front, but now he's using up his olive oil, getting some Chukunu. Love that move. This is actually coming from this neutral market down here. And look at this, we're leaking water, folks. Last time I checked, water should put out fires, not in this case though. There's the aqueduct gone. Beast has got 15 longbows, and he's actually doing a great job using the town center fire and the longbows as well to repel the archers. But that in and of itself is going to be insufficient. You'll probably have to rally the Limitani to jump on the hero siphon. Beasty tried to counterattack, which I appreciate, but his own eco is also crumbling right now. He needs to find some villager kills because he lost 22 and only killed 1. Big fight now unfolding over here. The Limitani coming out of this position to soak up the arrow fire. Longbow still focused with the infantry coming in from Anand, and Beasty is now calling the villagers up, repairing the TC, throwing the torches at the hero siphon. He still has the longbows firing away. I don't think he has enough repair power to keep this TC alive. He's got 1,400 wood in the bank, and it looks like he might hold this. He had just enough repairers, it seems. It's still on fire, but the hero siphon has been pushed back. Beasty is still losing a lot of villagers to this, though. Anand! This could be the lifeline of Beasty back into this game. He killed a few villagers here, keeps that villager gap essentially the same as it was. Town center still on fire. Beasty looking like that dog on the meme. It's fine. He is still sitting in the fire over here, but I've seen this so many times from Beasty, I'm not gonna lie. You think he's dead, but he's not. And I think one of the key things is that he's expanding to the north, something that Anand hasn't really been punishing. I still think that Anand has a terrific position over here, and he should have like a 70% chance of winning this game. But right now, especially with these villagers having been slain on the hunt, this is not so clear-cut for Anand anymore. Frankly, I think Beast's position right now is a little better than what it was 5 minutes ago. Horsemen coming to the north here. This is valuable intel here for Anand. Beasty does need some walls. But looks like Anand is seeking villagers on the wood lines, maybe on the gold. He's not going to find these massive setup of olive groves here. Beasty is still very reliant on mercenaries, so he needs a consistent supply of olive oil. But he has completed a farm transition, so he's got a steady supply of food and olive oil. On the other side, Anand is just harvesting the map though. And that's also a very steady supply of olive oil. Love these wars. Buy some time, because it looks like Anand does not have any more Hero Siphon to call in. But again, a couple of villagers were sacrificed for this. Beasty down by 11. What Beasty desperately needs, I feel, is a second TC. He needs to come back in terms of villagers. And he does have a safe stone mine. He could actually get second TC going very soon. The Ram Dance, or Hero Siphon Dance, I should say, another massive force assembling here. This time it's even bigger. And again, for Anand, he's doing the right thing. Just keep pressing, because Beasty is in a position of weakness. And Anand should notice. He sees the amount of longbows. And we also talked about this in some of the previous series that we've seen in this tournament. Longbows, which only come from olive oil exclusively, it's hard to mass produce them. Mass archers, it's a lot easier. So part of the reason why Anand has the upper hand here in terms of units is because he's relying on wood and food and not exclusively olive oil. In fact, Anand could afford a lot more units if he just cancelled a couple of these. Somewhat surprisingly, he doesn't have Expilatores on his cavalry. He could be getting a lot of bounty and benefit from killing these villas, plus some extra damage as well for the horsemen. Love this move from Anand though. He's yoinking away the berries from Beasty, getting all that valuable olive oil. He's getting some more Chukonu on the field as well. He actually has quite some out there. Hero Siphon burning their way through the walls. This is the now or never fight for Beasty. And he doesn't have a promising army, to be honest. 18 longbows, 9 Limitani, and 5 horsemen. His town center is not going to be under attack. And he needs to fight this. Both of his landmarks are right next to it. So this is a position that he needs to defend. Otherwise, he's going to get eliminated on the landmark victory condition. Cavalry now coming in for Anand. He's got 12 of the horsemen out there. Limitani engaging from both sides. Villagers desperate to repair this, but Beast is depleting his wood bank very quickly. He doesn't have the tools anymore to deal with the Hero Siphon. And I think this is the moment where Beasty is going to lose his town center. Town center is going to crumble, the aqueduct as well, and Beasty is being overrun by overwhelming numbers. Anand loved the game plan for this game. He took an unconventional route on this map, kind of skipping this second TC expansion that we see very frequently from most players, like Beasty in this game as well. And seeing that this is the most common build with Byzantines on this map, I feel like he had a perfect read on this. Beasty tried to play something conventional, and his initial defense wasn't bad. I think the place where it slipped was the loss of villagers. This defense was very good. When you look at the army count, Anand lost a significant portion of his attacking force. He lost his Hero Siphon, so he wasn't really able to get a second assault going very quickly. But Beasty lost way too many villagers, and it was just impossible to come back from it. If he lost the half of the villagers that he did in this engagement, this could have been a completely different story. Having said that, all the credit goes to Anand for coming up with this game plan, and maybe surprising Beasty a little with this aggressive push. I don't know if Beasty expected this approach being taken by Anand, but it was definitely a good read on what Beasty was doing, and it was definitely a good counter strategy employed here by Anand. Welcome back, everybody. It is still Beasty versus Anand in Draft of Empires, the grand finals that is. We took a little break here, and now we are heading into game number 3. This time around, it is going to be on Dry Arabia as I welcome you with Beasty spawning in on the northern side with the Order of the Dragon in yellow, and to the south, it is going to be Anand playing as the French in blue. Again, in this tournament, you do pick civilizations for the opponent. Beasty getting the Order of the Dragon, a civilization that he was very efficient with in this tournament, facing off against the French. Now, This is a tricky setup over here. First of all, I just want to highlight how I like this climate that we are using for the map. Most tournaments don't have a preset setting on the climate that you use, but I would actually love to see tournaments that are a little bit more specific towards that. In fact, we didn't really see a lot of that Japanese theme that we had with the new DLC. I would love to have that in upcoming tournaments, but this climate is definitely a little refreshing compared to what we ordinarily have in some of the map generations. You can actually set the climate yourself, it's just a thing that players don't really bother with. Anyway, French versus Order of the Dragon. This is a civilization matchup where it all comes down to how you use the French. What can you get out of your initial knights and what can you get out of your initial raids? You have to look at two things. The initial army composition for Beastie's Order of the Dragon is going to be some Gilded Horsemen and some Spearmen. Spearmen to defend the base, Gilded Horsemen to act as a quote-unquote proxy knight that you can raid with. But the key thing here for Anand is that you won't have many of the Gilded Spearmen out there on the field. So you have to stretch out Beastie's defenses. You have to attack from multiple angles, chip away at villagers. But one thing is sure, you cannot engage those Gilded Spearmen. Even just one Spearman like that can decimate your cavalry because of the massive damage output, the massive bonus damage that they have against Cav. So for Anand, a lot is going to come down on micro. How much can he get out of those initial knights? If not much, I feel like this is a civilization matchup where I kind of dislike the French. And so far, one of the feelings I have towards the DLC civilizations is that they feel a little powerful compared to the standard built-in civs. I'm trying to be very cautious saying this, because at the end of the day, this is still early meta, and we haven't really figured out the strengths and weaknesses of these new civilizations. But I feel like many of these new variant civilizations have a lot of options that just make them better than the ordinary version of the civilization. If you ask me if I like Order of the Dragon or HRE better, I probably say the Order. If you ask me if I like Jeanne d'Arc or French better, I say Jeanne d'Arc probably. Not because of the theme of the civilization, but because I feel like they have elements of gameplay that elevate them above competition. And I feel like part of this here for the Order of the Dragon is how effective those initial spearmen will be in defending against the knights, and also how effective their initial cavalry will be when it comes to raiding. There is a gigantic difference between a Gilded Horseman harassing your eco and a standard horseman harassing your eco. No surprise, on the French side, it's going to be the School of Cavalry coming in. Beastie opting to go with the Minework Palace, the more popular option for players when it comes to picking a landmark for the Order of the Dragon. Like this nice little condensed base for Beastie, dropping the landmark over here, it's kind of gonna body block units that try to hit these lumberjacks. And at the same time, we are seeing a defensive tower on this gold mine. This is such a nice little touch, and I love it. If you have a spearman nearby, you don't need a tower. But the thing I love about this tower is that it gives shelter to villagers, and it minimizes the risk of losing any of these very expensive but highly efficient dragon villagers. And I think this level of cautiousness and safety that Beastie's playing with is immensely valuable when you play the Order. You cannot afford to lose a large amount of units because they're so expensive and so premium. So what you gotta do is make sure that you minimize the risk of you losing any of these units. A tower like this accomplishes just that. Minework Pass just built with one villager here. It's a very slow age up for Beastie. He's even building some ramparts around the gold mine. And this is a new thing. With walls snapping to the gold mine, it's actually very easy to wall this gold mine in. It's very AoE 2-esque. So the knights cannot even hurt the villagers now. They have to loop all the way around, get in here, and then they can start killing vills. In fact, I would dare to say that with these walls being set up the way they are, this tower might even be a little overcautious. But I like the level of caution that Beastie's playing with. Order of the Dragon loves late game, and especially against the French, that's the domain where you want to play. So for Beastie, playing this very defensive and cautious game at the beginning makes a lot of sense. First Knight, as you see, it's struggling to find a target for itself. And Beastie, he's going to play into the Horseman here. No surprise. those horsemen won't be able to beat those knights one-on-one, but they are great raiding units. They're expensive. 200 food, 40 gold. They're actually essentially the same cost as the knights are, 240 resources overall. But this one gilded horseman, it actually is able to outrun knights. I think that's a small difference that we need to highlight. Knights having a movement speed of 1.62, horsemen 1.88. So it's this horseman that chooses which engagements to take and which not to take. If he wants to fight that knight, let's say you have 2 horsemen and you want to fight the knight, you can do that. At the same time, this knight is going to struggle keeping track of this horseman, and this horseman does have a respectable base attack. 15 base attack, that's pretty good when you want to raid vills. It's going to mean that you need 4 hits to kill a villager, but when you accompany it with a scout, you can actually use that scout to get some extra damage in. Will still take some time to kill villagers, but when these villagers are so far away, these are prime targets, and to me it seems like Anand wasn't really expecting a counterattack. Horseman comes in, and again, Anand is kind of scrambling. Nice little body block there. Beautiful shuffling of villagers, but it won't save that one villager targeted. Second villager will get pushed back. I think you actually dive this. Another villager shuffle will save the other villager, though. Nice move by Anand. See, Anand clearly sees the stable, but I think he lost track of these units coming through. Beasty snuck out with one horseman. He's going to have a second one coming out. Anand has been aggressive, expanding towards these neutral patches of hunt. But Beasty could exploit that with his cavalry if he's not cautious. And now he's probing the gold mine as well. This one gilded horseman is giving so much value for Beasty, contrary to what this knight is doing. And it's always bad when the French player is the defender. It's always bad when they are not the ones setting the tempo. But here, this defense that we've seen set up by Beasty is just so good that the knights cannot find any legitimate targets, whereas at the same time, these horsemen are now finding very valuable villager kills. That's going to be the second villager that goes down the drain. Nice little villager shuffle, but still, villager gets picked off. And you see the knights don't have a massive base attack against these gilded horsemen. 19 sword damage, it takes a lot of hits to kill a single gilded horseman. Beast is still harassing the food sources, also probing the gold mines. We will have some spearmen now coming out for Anand. But notice how Beasty is investing very little into army now. He's actually shifting a lot of villagers to gold, a clear indication that he wants to go into Castle Age. And we have seen this very frequently with the Order of the Dragon. You get a couple of gilded horsemen out, play a very defensive game, set the tempo of the game with the horseman raids, and then once you kind of force your opponent to defend, you have this window in which you can get to Castle Age, get some gilded knights out, kind of do the same after then. And more importantly, once you get to Castle Age, you can start picking up the relics. But the doctrine remains the same once you get to Castle. You will do the exact same thing, just with gilded knights, which are also substantially better at doing this than gilded horsemen are. Beasty has killed 4 villagers in this game, hasn't lost any just yet. He's getting close to Castle Age. Had to mix in a couple of farms in here because he doesn't really have a lot of food to work with. In theory, he could drop a barracks, send out a single gilded spearman to deal with this knight, but I feel like he just wants to get to Castle as soon as possible. Needs to be cautious with the horsemen now. One of them has taken a big beating, one has been picked off before. But he's on the way to Castle Age with the Ragnitz Cathedral, clearly visible for Anand, or is it? Anand doesn't have his scout nearby. He's yet to scout the landmark. He should know what's coming. And indeed, he now gets visual confirmation on the landmark, knows that Beasty is going into Castle Age. So normally, when you have a setup like this, your opponent rushing Castle Age, you have the army lead, or at least on paper, you attack, you dive, and you punish that. But we don't really have that massive army advantage here for Anand. 4 spearmen, 6 knights, I'm not really sold on that. Beasty in the meantime has killed 5 villagers, keeps repetitively harassing these villagers out here. Anand has to station so many of his troops back at home, and I just feel like there's no juice in the game plan of Anand here. Obviously, I think Beasty has the better civ in this matchup, but I just feel like what I'm seeing from Anand is a little meh. Expanding towards the hunt, but it's a 1 TC build. He's going into Castle himself, I appreciate that. But he's got a range, he's got a Rax. This range was completely unused in this entire game, for instance. First time a villager gets killed over here by him, value is finally found for that one knight. Beast is up to cost himself, Gilded Knights will be on the way. As I said, Anand, I appreciate how he's going up. He's using the guild hall, which means that he won't have royal bloodlines in Castle Age. His knights will remain inferior compared to the Gilded Knights, but he's going to have some much needed extra eco. And that's going to be critical given that he played 1 TC only. Guild hole near completion as well. Beasty needs to break out of his base because he needs those relics. There is not much to the north, so this knight can stay alive, but Beasty, he needs to get this relic under his control. Same thing goes for this. And for Anand on the other side, he needs to race for those relics. He cannot afford to let Beasty get the majority of the relics. Or maybe if Beasty gets the majority, Anand needs at least 2. This one should be guaranteed for Anand. He cannot let that fall out of his hands. And then either this one or this one, he needs to grab. So where's the monastery at? Are we seeing a monastery? I don't see any. Gilded Spearman now also being pushed out. Knight has to flee. And look at that Gilded Knight just galloping through. This is where it gets dicey for Anand. This knight just 2-shots villagers with textiles on them. Anand once again has to flee. It's not just the villagers killed, it's also the idle time on this eco that's concerning for him. And with Beasty getting the range defense, the second layer that is, he is definitely showing an intention towards pushing into the town center fire at some point. Gilded Spearman even getting a brace in. These bad boys, they have plus 40 against cavalry. They just eviscerate all the cavalry that you have here for Anand if you're not cautious. Beasty coming in with the second relic as well. And in the meantime, nice little raid here. This is just horsemen and spearmen, but Anand keeps bleeding villagers. He's just bleeding from too many wounds, I feel. And the moment Beasty gets a little window, he gets some walls up. Walls that would be much needed for Anand. I think if Anand had some walls here, even just some partial walls on flanks, he could have reduced the amount of raids that Beasty was able to make. Finally, some nice raids from Anand as well, but his one knight over here is heavily damaged. Monastery is complete. Wololo now coming in, trying to push away the spearman. Should be able to do that, but once the knights come in, you do get the kill here anyways. So Beast is going to be on 2 relics for the time being. This one is kind of camped down by Anand. This one for now being denied, and this one just way too far away. And Beast's army, he is mostly on a spearman right now. Anand started to mix in some arbaletier. This being said, Beasty, he needed food. And I think part of the reason why we don't see more Gilded Knights is because he was just low on food. He had to make a farm transition. He's on berries. That just goes to show how little food he had access to. But now that he cleaned up the knight to the north, he can move towards the hunt. At the same time, let's talk about Anand. This is a good window for him. He has the majority of the relics. He needs to yoink them as soon as possible. Don't heal the knights even. I don't think this is a good thing to do. Just take the relic. Anand is on a serious timer here, especially because Beasty's moving out towards this relic, and despite the fact that Anand, he does have a couple of range units here to fight this, Beasty, all he needs to yoink this relic is just a little push, and he does get the 3rd relic. With that, he's going to have the majority of the relics under his control. And this monk is still not taking the relic. I feel like we're seeing so many missed opportunities here from Anand. Sir, please, do this for me. Don't tell me that Beast is going to get that relic. That would be such a massive slip-up from Anand. I know this is difficult. I don't blame him for being distracted. Beast is very oppressive with these raids, but at this level, missing out on that relic would have been catastrophic. Looks like he gets away just in time. Gilded Spearman there to chase. Beasty knows that the relic is being taken away, but Anand might be able to at least salvage that 1 relic for himself, plus the 1 at the back. This got a lot closer than it should have been, and now the monk gets picked off. Oh my lord, Beasty, he's using this as diversion. Oh my lord, this is an absolute marvel that we've seen here. Beasty pointed out numerous times that he's using Vololo as a diversion. People get scared that their villagers are being converted, people get scared that their army is getting converted. But Beasty popped the Vololo here to conceal the attack notification on this monk. Beasty, he knew fully well that if the attack notification hits on this Monk, Anand will try to chase down his Prelate as he's yoinking the Relic. So he popped the wall low to try and conceal that attack notification on the other side. Anand still knows about this, but Beasty gets away with this Relic, and I think it's going to be way too close to his base for Anand to prevent Beasty from taking it home. Relic number 4 under the control of Beasty. Things are starting to go in his way. He does have only a 6 villager deficit. Anand takes just nothing out of this. He taps out immediately. And I feel like we're entering this zone where it's not just games falling into the hands of Beasty, but morale might be crumbling for Anand. That is a devastating defeat. Beasty takes a fairly easy victory over here. At least easy when you look at the outside. In reality, this was a perfect game plan from Beasty. He probably had the better civilization in this civilization matchup, but it's also how you use that civ. This constant oppressive raiding that we had from Beasty, and then breaking out of his base, securing the majority of the relics, just playing a very opportunistic game. And I really cannot emphasize this enough. That Monk waited way too long to bring that relic back for Anand. And now, going into what is match point for Beasty, you gotta wonder if Anand still has, the morale to turn this around. He played a very good game in the previous one, but this one was just lacking juice, I feel. It's just so heartbreaking as well for him. You can actually tell based on that instant GG, seeing the relic being taken away, that there is a morale element here as well. I'm not gonna lie, I think his chances of winning the game with Beasty having 4 relics and a completely untouched eco on the Order of the Dragon also makes it extremely unlikely for him to win that. So might as well just throw the towel in. We'll have to see how his morale looks like as we head to game number 4, because we do have a matchup of 2 new civilizations. It is going to be Beasty playing as the Ayyubids in yellow, and to the right side it is going to be Jeanne d'Arc for Anand in French, or Anand in blue actually. Now, I like this matchup a lot more for Anand than I did in the previous game. Jeanne d'Arc versus Ayyubids could be tricky though, especially because I'm not sure if Anand is prepared for one of the more oppressive tricks that Ayyubids have. As a reminder, you give a civilization to the opponent, so Ayyubids was the civ that Anand has given to Beasty, and I feel like that's a big danger zone. Because what Beasty likes to do with the Ayyubids is play into the Camel Raider. It's a unit that acts as a Camel Archer and as a Camel Rider at the same time. If it's on melee mode, it's a great tool to deal with French Knights. If it's on range mode, it's a great tool to harass a gold mine with, like a Camel Archer. And I think that's a big issue for the French over here. If you have that harassment on your gold mine, plus a direct counter to your knights in Feudal Age, that is a very bad sign. So how does Anand break this? I feel like it might need to be on the back of raw numbers. So I would love to see a strong focus on consecrating the production buildings for the cavalry and playing very heavily into the knights. Also playing a raiding game. This Ayyubid harassment with the Camel Raiders works very well until you are the tempo setter. But Anand needs to be the tempo setter in this game. He wasn't able to accomplish that in the previous one. In this game, it's essentially a must-have for him. He needs to stretch out the defenses of the Ayyubids player. Now, the 2 players are pretty close apart on this map. The map, by the way, is called Cliffside, actually. And this is the Savannah biome that we're using for this. But the key thing here is that the players are very close to each other, so that first knight can arrive fairly quickly. School of Cavalry on the way, no surprise on that front here for Anand. On the other side, we should probably see... It's going to be the growth upgrade, plus 3 villagers for a Beasty. Alright. He actually likes this option for the Ayyubids over the 300 extra wood. I've seen some players experimenting with the industry version of this age up. 300 wood can help you a lot when it comes to getting a second TC up, but I don't think a second TC is a main priority for Beasty. I think he wants to play into a 1 TC game for the time being. He might go for a second TC at some point, but one thing that's surprising is that he didn't go with the Dervishes. If he wants to play that very oppressive camel game, dervishes are the way to go, because you also get 2 units that can heal those camels. And they can also heal each other, so cleaning up the trade is always challenging. Having said that, a direct eco boost of 3 villagers is also a very nice extra here for Beasty. Beasty does have his berries on the front, which is definitely a position of weakness or a position of vulnerability. And that's definitely one of the primary targets that Anand should focus on. There aren't really many berry patches on this map. You just have 3 on each side of this little valley, I guess. And those are out in the open for Beasty, excluding the one that he has right next to his DC. So if he gets cut off from this berry patch, he might struggle to access a lot of food. He does have quite some sheep to work with, but berries, it's definitely something that could be denied of him. Feudal Age in here for Beasty. Let's take a look at what he's gonna play with. He's heavy on the wood, wants to make a production building, but I don't see any villagers having been sent to stone. He's very heavy on gold here. A fast castle here would be near suicidal, I feel. Maybe if you go with the advancement option, just so that you get quickly to Castle Age and you also get a discount. But I feel like this gold being gathered is not really for Castle Age just yet. Also, I think everybody wants to go to Castle Age with the trade wings so they can do the casino stuff. Jean is up to Women-at-Arms, and indeed we will have knights coming in here. I would love to see Jean harassing here on the berries. When you look at the TC range, it's kind of encapsulating some of the berries, but you can at least poke around these villagers, maybe cause some harassment here on the berries, damage some of these villagers. For now, Jean is moving out towards this one boar. I would not be shocked if the other boar could also be targeted here by Jean. This is also going to give her some XP, so she's going to progress towards that next level, which is the knight version. That's the really valuable unit in Feudal Age. First knight on the way. And Beasty doesn't have any production buildings just. He's just walling. I'm starting to second guess myself over here. This might end up being a fast castle. It would be kind of crazy, or at least ambitious at the very least. But there's a chance Beasty is thinking about it. I love this lower wall. Makes it a lot more difficult for the knights to rotate. These knights have to go all the way up here and come around if they want to actually rotate around. This little wall is nice. This is pretty obvious. Love this wall as well. Kind of the same doctrine that we've seen from Beasty. Just make sure that you wall in your gold mine so the knights cannot harass you. He even has double towers here. Probably would be better to just wall this area, but he doesn't want to send out a villager, I presume. Love that after taking out the boar, Anand is actually sending some villagers there, so you don't just get the XP for Jeanne d'Arc, but you're also benefiting from that boar being out there. Still no production buildings for Beasty. Nothing at all. He's actually willing to forfeit the berries, which is somewhat surprising to me. But the town center should be able to protect the lumberjacks, and he's got a very nicely set up defense here. It looks like this is a fast castle. Folks, it looks like it's a fast castle. He's going very heavy on the gold as well. I want to look at this detail. This is not necessarily an upgrade that you get if you're just simply fast castling. This is a sign that he wants to go for a very gold-intensive strategy in Castle Age. Casino is one of those. I think that's the plan here for Beasty. And we've seen that being very oppressive. Being able to get a bunch of units out very quickly from the House of Wisdom to turn the tides of the battle. And so far, Anand is struggling to break this defense. Looks like he's thinking about Castle Age here as well. I like that quite a bit. But the scary thing here for Anand is that with the Trade Wing Casino, the escalation of the army is very rapid. So Anand could find himself outnumbered very quickly. So that's something that he needs to be careful about. I love this wall, though. If he's afraid of a sudden counterattack, maybe off the back of that Abbasid shenanigan, then getting some walls up is definitely something that gives him a lot of buffer and some much-needed time to get his own Castle Age army up. This is a clever move, and I like it. Indeed, Bazaar on the way for Beasty. There's also going to be a barracks on the way. We have seen some Desert Swordsmen being mixed in with some Ghulams being a go-to option for many Iobits players with the casino. We'll have to see if that's the direction that Beastie's heading towards as well. But this is why I love these walls, and Beastie is just now realizing that these walls are being made. He cannot stop it with only one scout, especially when a knight comes close by. But I love how Anand is giving himself an opportunity to buffer up against the counterattack. He's also going up with the Guild Hall, very similar approach taken to the previous game. He's actually going to have the second board taken down as well with Jean, so Jean shouldn't be far away from a level up here. Unfortunately, the casting UI does not show the level of progress for Jean, so we're just going to be kept in the dark with this. This knight is still torching his way through the walls. Beastie is protected from the north, and Anand will actually have to loop all the way around here. Given that it doesn't have gates, he would have to go all the way around, essentially across the map, to get to the back of Beastie's base. Beast actually sent out a spearman to deal with this scout. This is important because this scout is looking at this gold mine, and the fact that Beastie is so heavy on gold is a clear indication that we're going to see something extremely gold heavy. And that is going to be... what? Let's take a look at what options we have here. Extra villagers for gold. Some traders for gold, probably not relevant. Bedouin swordsmen, something that's very commonly seen. Decent value for this gold amount. And then Bedouin skirmishers, occasionally used, but not something that's super common. School of Cavalry now consecrated, meaning that these Royal Knights are also coming at a discount. And with these walls complete, it means that Beastie cannot just rapidly counterattack with a bunch of these units. I'm still wondering what Beastie's up to, being so heavy on the gold. He's going for a mosque, he wants to secure the relics. This is all nice and fine, but he does not have a single relic accessible right now. Granted, he could blast his way through these walls, but that's going to take some time, and his opponent is also in Castle Age. It's somewhat surprising that we're seeing men-at-arms instead of, let's say, arbaletier against this. The barracks have been consecrated, so there's a significant discount on these men-at-arms, but I'm just not so sold on the French men-at-arms right now. And Beastie actually went for traders. This is intriguing, but it gets very underwhelming when you realize that he's been walled in. And I think this is the moment where I'm starting to wonder if Beastie knows that he's been walled in. I think he may have just now found out that he's been completely surrounded. He couldn't even stop these walls from going up, meaning that now... Actually, there's an opening here, though. Never mind, Beastie just doesn't see the forest. It's a little tricky. He can, of course, get through these walls eventually, but it's going to be a costly endeavor. Not just when it comes to potentially fighting against arbaletier or archers, but also when it comes to time that he needs to spend on getting through these walls. Dervish is now out, so Beast is going to try to yoink this relic, and now Anand knows what's up. Anand needs to start focusing a little bit more on range units, specifically crossbows or arbaletier, because he's the Ghulam. He needs something that picks these units off from the other side of the wall. Dervish is going to steal one relic, though. I guess I shouldn't even say that Anand should start yoinking these relics while he can. He does have many of these relics safely positioned, but Beastie's now coming out for many of those, and I don't think Anand can afford a scenario like he had in the previous game, where he had all the ability to secure the majority of the relics, and then he missed out on them. 2 more dervishes are on the way. This relic could be gone, this relic could be gone, and if you ask me 2 minutes ago on how many relics Anand should be getting on this map, I'd probably say at least 3, but preferably 4. Now, if he gets 2, he's lucky. Beast isn't even sending out dervishes up until now, but yeah, there he goes. This one dervish gets intercepted at least. Nice little pick there by Jean. Beastie coming out with a Ghulam. Has a lot of crossbows that should make minced meat out of those knights. Horsemen trying to flank around. Arbaletier helping too, but this army is a little underwhelming here. You probably want to use your area damage here for Jean. But Jean gets picked off very quickly. And with that, this army is a little weaker now, but still something that can push Beastie back here. Ghulam disappearing thanks to the Arbaletier. And those traders, they're being spotted by Anand. He needs to pick them off. It's 8 traders for Beastie. He wants to find some value for purchasing those traders. Traders actually make it to the neutral market. That gives a lot of gold for Beasty. Much needed gold to get maybe some Bedouin swordsmen out. He does have quite a few neutral traders here, so he could actually use that card. Wait a second. Yeah, it looks like he's going for Bedouin skirmishers for the time being. Anand needs to start picking up relics though. Beasty already has 2 of them, despite Anand having all these walls up here. Looks like Beasty is just going to hide these traders in the corner for the time being. He does have a market in this neutral corner. Anand is doing a lot of good things here, confining Beasty inside his base, but once again, I just feel like I'm lacking the juice here. I'm lacking that killer instinct from Anand. This relic should be his, this relic should be his, but most importantly, he should be racing towards this relic, something that he's not really doing. Also, on a separate note, he's got walls up. 3 sacred sites, all of them are on his side of the map. Easy grab, it's an easy extra gold income, but more importantly, you force Beasty on a timer. Even if 10 minutes is a long wait for you and you might not be able to hold those walls that long, it at least puts Beasty on a timer. Right now, I don't feel like there is that sense of urgency for Anand to do something. I feel like he's letting Beasty boom away with this game, and he's been using all that gold to buy villagers. He is on 1 TC, yet he has a massive villager lead compared to his opponent. Not just when it comes to actual villagers, but also as traders too. And if these traders start rolling, it gets even worse for Anand. I feel like he's just not being aggressive enough here, frankly. It looks like he's finally capturing the sacred site. Pushing away his opponent for the time being. He's slowly mixing in a lot of horsemen. I don't see many spears just yet from Beasty, but he does have a lot of traders. This game could come down to this neutral market being held by either side. If you do have it, Beasty is going to just steamroll his opponent here with trade. If Anand holds it, Beasty is still going to be stuck in his base. Finally, Anand starts picking up those relics. He also has the guild hall, and he has 1100 food in there. That's going to come in very handy. When you pick it out is an interesting question. For the time being, I would say hold it, because you might need it for Imperial Age at some point. Still, sacred sites could be nice to capture. I also wouldn't mind some stone walls, to be honest. Here in this game, I see a very similar setup than what we had in game number 1, where Anand could actually benefit massively from confining Beasty in his own base, but he needs to do that well. Desert Traders are being mixed in now. Right now they're in Archer mode, but once they switch to Cavalry mode, they are actually a formidable unit against the Horsemen that we have here for Anand. Indeed, they have the veterancy now. You see 15 base stack plus 15 against Cavalry. They don't have a terrific amount of HP, but it's not like there are any high DPS units in the army of Anand either. And they do project that Camolani's aura, making it much more difficult for Anand to engage this. At least Anand took the relic from this side, so that's, I guess, the silver lining. But he's behind by 30 villagers. Beasty has been using this ability for quite some time. That's how he got the villager lead. In fact, when we look at the villager graph at the end of the game, that should be very visible. Sacred Sites now being capped here as well by Anand. He even has Jean's champions out here, so quite some units. I like the Mass Arbaletier plus the Horseman. That's a pretty deadly combination coming in from the French. Especially when you consider that these units come at a discount. 75 food only is the cost on them. Mongol now pushing up. One thing that you could do if you're Anand is maybe shift a little to the south with the Arbaletier, keep the Horsemen to the north, and then flank around, jump on the Mongol and the Arbaletier or the Crossbowman. And it looks like Beasty is now running low on gold. He's been using up his gold very aggressively, of course, for these abilities. So he depleted his initial gold mines, and now he needs to expand in this area. This map has a lot of gold to work with, so if Beasty gets a constant influx of gold, he can use this ability of the House of Wisdom endlessly. Fight happening here in the middle. Dervish is also coming in here for some combat healing. Some of the cavalry isn't engaging though. Kind of being held at the back here as a reserve. Mongol getting a beautiful shot though, Beasty. Nice low body blocking, blocking the cavalry away from hitting the Mongol. Mongol gets a beautiful second volley out before it gets taken out. Most of the arballetry are now gone. Jean needs to use her abilities over here. That was just now done. Still a decent cleanup here for Anand. Or is it? There are still some spearmen out there. Dervish is also healing from the back line, but I think it is just enough for Anand. Casualties have been massive on both sides, but Anand is the one confining his opponent inside his base. And if he's able to cut Beasty off from this gold, it might be a justified loss. But this is why Beasty is rushing a castle here. Beasty needs this castle desperately because he might not have a second chance like this to break out of his base. And he's willing to sacrifice this army to prevent that castle from being stopped. Anand on the other side, he doesn't even know about the castle. Beasty's taking this fight, sacrificing some of the units so he can finish this keep. And the keep does go up. I don't want to exaggerate here, but I think this might be game here for Anand. This is a catastrophic loss of position for Anand. For a player that is behind by 30 population, for a player that is behind by 30 plus eco, and most importantly, he lost out on this sacred side. He lost out on this opportunity that he had to confine Beasty in his own base. Now Beasty has this sacred side, so you can't play the sacred side victory condition, and Beasty does have access to gold. That gold is going to be turned into even more abilities being utilized here. And those abilities will probably steamroll the game very soon. And I think this is a sign of desperation for Anand. I don't feel like this army is enough to do anything significant inside the enemy base. And the fact that he's charging in head-on makes me feel like he's desperate for a counterattack, desperate to make something happen, realizing that this confinement strategy will no longer work. He's going to get some damage done. He's going to get some villager picks, some army picks here as well, but when you look at the overall villager kill count, it's nothing spectacular. None of these units are heavily armored, so the town center should be able to clean this up. And Beasty's sitting on 2 TCs now. Indeed. What? What am I just witnessing? Oh my lord, Beasty tapped out. I did not expect this. I am gonna have to double check if this wasn't a crash. But I am so puzzled. I think this has to be some sort of a mind game behind the scenes. Granted, Beasty lost a lot of vills. Actually, that's the total unit count, never mind. You see, if you look at this graph, sure enough you say Beasty doesn't have a lot of army. Can I just look at the army count, please? Yeah, you see, Beasty doesn't have a terrific army, but Beasty is not the type of player that quits when he has no army. He had 2 town centers firing on lightly armored units. He could have held that. I think this comes down to the fact that he didn't think that he has such a big eco advantage. If I show this graph to Beasty, and I show him that essentially the entire army of Anand, the cavalry and the arballetry are standing right next to town centers, Beasty even had a wall across his base that prevents those from breaking into the back of his eco. I feel like if I show this graph to him, he says, look, this was an early GG. I don't want to judge him because obviously the things we see with the caster mode are different from what the players see. But to me, this was a very un-Beasty-esque GG. He's known for being one of the players that stays in a game very, very long, and I think his position was absolutely alright here. Might have looked a little dicey with the army count here. But none of those units were heavily armored. The town center could have done a good job dealing with them. And he still had a massive eco lead. I think part of this is the fact that he still had match point, and now we're going to game number 5. He was more willing to give up on this game. If this was a decider game, he would have fought to the bitter end. Maybe... But even the gold access, that's not a thing. He has a castle on the gold, so he has steady gold access. I think the only thing I can think of is access to food. Maybe his food eco wasn't really set up. Maybe he didn't have a farm transition, and that's what caused him to tap out. But this is definitely one of the earlier GGs that we see from Beasty in tournaments. He usually is very resilient and stays in games for a long time. So I'm somewhat surprised that he was the one tapping out of this one. Again, I'm just going to quickly check. But yeah, it's apparently a crash. I think. Well, whichever the case, it looks like we are going to have a game number 5. I actually couldn't find any confirmation about what happened in the previous game. But let's just, move on to the next game. Let's take a look at what we have here. Game number 5. It looks like we're going to have a very short break in between those games, so I'll be back when game number 5 begins. Welcome back to Draft of Empires. The last game of the Grand Finals is upon us. We're going to be jumping in right away. We took a little break, but now we are in game number 5. It is going to be Beasty spawning in on the left side of Himayana with the Japanese in yellow, and on the right side, he opted to pick HRE for his opponent, Anand. Japanese, a civilization that we didn't commonly see in this tournament. This is the first time I'm actually seeing it in a set I cast, at least in this tournament. So I'm curious how this is going to be played by Beasty. It looks like we're going to have both players moving out towards a dock. Now, this is not something that's super common when you look at this map and when you look at what we've seen in this tournament before, but it definitely makes some sense if you want to get some early extra eco picked up. So Japanese, of course, you open with these farmhouses, also gives you access to the berries, something that you probably want to ignore for the time being, but I guess out of straight efficiency, Beasty is just going to keep this one villager on so he doesn't have to walk back. Again, I think this is the last time, well, this is probably the last time I have an opportunity to do this. I want to give a big shout out to Blade555 for putting this tournament together. Make sure you check out his channel. I will leave a link down in the video description. Thank you so much for Blade for putting this tournament together. Love this series we had. In case you missed out on any of the sets, the 2 quarterfinals and the 1 semi-final I cast, you can find them here on my YouTube channel. And if you do enjoy my commentary, I greatly appreciate if you press the like button on this video and if you subscribe to this channel. With that being said, for now, it's a fairly standard hybrid water start for both of these players. You see no villagers on gold on either side right now. Villagers have just been sent by Anand, but this is a pretty common occurrence when you play a hybrid map and when you go for a dock. You delay your feudal age by investing into this dock, by sending more villagers on wood, so that you can actually afford to get some fishing boats out. Now, it's a lot easier for the Japanese to justify this, because they do have a considerable discount on these fishing boats, and it means that you can actually get them out with a lot less time and villager investment into wood. Beast is also going very heavy on these fishing boats. You see, Anand, he actually stopped at 2. Yeah, that's 2 plus a villager underneath. And on the other side, Beast is going all the way up to 4, and he might not even stop because he's still chopping a lot of wood. He's going to have a forge right next to this gold mine as well. But the alarming thing for Beastie here, I feel, is that this fishing eco could evaporate in an instant if Anand gets to Feudal Age and gets either a demo ship out or a hawk. But here's the tricky thing, and this is why this is a very intriguing setup, I feel. First of all, Beastie can keep 3 of his fishing boats safe. Same applies for Anand with the dock garrisoning mechanism. But I think the reason why this is important is because this is such a tiny pond that there is just no room to maneuver. In this pond, unless you're like positioning your ships somewhere around over here, there is no chance for your opponent not to connect with a demo ship. And that is big. I think that's why Beastie can almost ignore this. I think he's just like, okay, I'm benefiting from these 4 fishing boats right now. He's also taking away the only shorefish that's on the side of his opponent. And then he can actually shift his fishing boats back. But I think it's more about the fact that he's going to be willing to forfeit this, because eventually the 2 players will just cancel each other out here with demo ships, I feel. Aken Chapel coming in here for Anand. It's nowhere close to the stone mine. Makes me think that Anand will just play 1 TC here. Something that he does very frequently in this series, actually. He never played 2 TCs with any of the civilizations, actually. His French and Jeanne d'Arc, he played 1 TC. His Byzantines, he also played 1 TC. I just don't remember game number 1. But he's definitely not a 2 TC player in this set. Villagers, hello. On the other side, Kura Storehouse coming in here for Beastie. A very popular landmark for Feudal Age Japan. And I love this landmark. I think it's one of the most valuable landmarks, because this allows you to have a seamless and consistent transition to farms. And that means that whenever you're putting a lot of pressure on your opponent in Feudal Age, and you deplete your available food, the hunt, the berries, the sheep, you won't lose momentum. You have a bunch of farms that you can transition to immediately. And I think that's immensely valuable. It's very useful when you want to play Extended Feudal Age and play this Samurai plus Archer aggression in Feudal. Feudal Age is in for Anand. No combat vessels coming out just yet, though, for him. Beast isn't really rushing Feudal. He seems rather unconcerned about the state of affairs here on the water, partly because there isn't really much fish left over here. There's still an untouched deposit to the north. This one is 400, so almost full. And this one I'm trying to click is essentially depleted. So by the time the first combat ship comes out, there's just not much. It looks like arrow slits and placement is going to be the choice for Anand. He's moving on to stone. He picked up quite some stone, but now he's shifting away from it. And it's just going to be multiple arrow slits, actually. One on the tower, and of course one on the dock. The arrow slits are fine, and it's going to sink all the fishing boats from Beasty, but it's not going to get rid of the dock. So technically Beasty is going to have the option to get some demos out and destroy your dock. At the end of the day, again, it's not going to matter, because the available fish is almost gone. And it looks like Beasty might be fast castling this. This is a very intriguing build. Obviously, we haven't really seen this civilization a lot on this map in tournament settings before. But I like this idea. Nice micro, by the way, keeping the low HP fishing boats in the dock. He's essentially getting all these fishing boats out as a cheap investment in Dark Age, given that he gets the discount for them. And he's using that food, just before it gets depleted, to facilitate a fast castle. It's going to be a fast castle as well from Anand. But the fact that you can match the castle age timing of an HRE player that does have fish and an Aachen Chapel boost is pretty admirable, I would say. So Beasty's gonna go straight into castle age. He also will have a lot of backup farms to work with. And at this point, he doesn't care about the fish anymore. It has done its job. It allowed him to get to castle age. And he is going up with the floating gate. He's going to play into the Shinto Priests. This is the landmark that spawns you the Yorishiro, allowing you to have a massive production boost on your buildings. In general, it's just an artifact that you can garrison into any of the buildings to give very powerful buffs. But if you do that in production buildings, you get an aura that's very similar to the Chinese supervision. For the time being, Anand is satisfied just taking a look at his opponent's base over here, sees the floating gate, sees the barracks. No units coming out from Beasty just yet. Now, I would be surprised if he played into the Samurai, because even with the deflective armor available, I think men-at-arms with maces will just beat that. Looks like it's a stable for Anand, not a barracks, so he's going to play into knights, something that could potentially be anticipated by Beasty, but he's playing into the Onabugaisha. This is a fast-moving unit. And that is a big thing here. It's like a semi-cavalry unit for you. And it's something that allows you to get some map control out there. Shinto Priest is also walking out. The Shinto Priest, it's kind of a sitting duck right now. First knight queued up for Anand. Anand is actually racing towards this relic with Beasty. Beasty is trying to yoink this far-away relic. I don't know. You see, the Prelate, I think, is going to reach that a little sooner, but there's an Onabugaisha coming in. And that's the big thing. 1.50 movement speed. It actually has a similar movement speed to the Scout itself. There's one knight somewhere, or soon to be one knight from Anand. He actually has a lot of idols on food. We're going to talk about that in a second, because that's a big thing. Anand going for the preemptive Volo, buying some time for that knight to arrive. For that knight to arrive. He's also taking the relic from the north. In this game, he's a lot more active collecting the relics, and I think he's doing a good job with that. Problem here for Beasty is that this Onabugaisha is fairly fragile, and it does have a decent DPS, but it takes some time to kill this priest, and the knight is coming already. Even if this monk dies, or even if this prelate dies, Anand should have this relic under his control. He can kill the Onabugaisha, he can kill the Shinto priest even, and then he can just pick this up with a second monk. This relic is being brought back, and we are going to have at least 2 relics for Anand. Beasty is racing for the relics himself, and you see Shinto Priest falls. Sure, the Prelate was picked off, but eventually this relic should fall into the hands of Anand. So, relics seem to be 3-2, although the number of Onabuga-isha is increasing. I just don't see any Shinto priests nearby. We have some Yorishiro out there. They haven't really been used by Beasty just yet, but I think he's going to grab some of them too. Now let's talk about the food eco, because that's a big thing though. And this is why I was concerned for Anand, not having essentially any more sheep to work with. Here's the thing, this is where the Kura storehouse comes into play. The fact that Beasty gets a consistent free supply of farms means that he is always going to have a fairly consistent food income. He doesn't have that very harsh farm transition that Anand will have to make. Anand right now is just on berries. And indeed, speaking of relics, by the way, we have 3 relics indeed for Anand. He was able to secure the 3rd one. Get some good fights here as well against the Onabuga-isha. Knight looping around. We have some spears as well for Beasty, but this game is looking very good here for Anand. This is looking extremely good for Anand, I must say. He still needs to make that farm transition, and I think that's going to be a position of weakness for him, but he's actually floating a lot of gold. Makes me wonder if he wants to go Imperial. He's got nice map control with the Knights. He has gotten the majority of the relics. This would be a good time to pop out the Palace of Swabia and quickly escalate your eco, pull ahead from Beasty. At the same time, Beasty is getting the Town Center upgrade, so he is going to have access to some Bannermen. And if his opponent is going quick Imperial, that's something that he could potentially punish. Great concern for him right now is that his eco is fairly feeble. That 300 gold to 1000 difference per minute is terrifying. Food is still a concern for Anand though. I think that's going to be the big make or break for him. Can he get through this window where he doesn't have any farming eco? Second TC coming up for Beasty, so he's going to try and escalate the eco. I like this choice. I think 1 TC isn't really an option for him, especially if he's anticipating this semi-fast Imperial from the HRE player going for the Pass of Swabia. But now this needs to be a long game for Beasty to be able to succeed. This is right now a good position for Anand. And if Anand actually buys some food, he could go into Imperial straight away. For now, he's actually prioritizing a lot of upgrades, which I kind of like. You have a decent lead, you have an insane amount of gold, might as well spend it on eco upgrades. What is this Proud up to, though? Side note worth adding is that Anand is still fishing here. It's not like anyone cares, but he still has some fish working here. Love the walls from Beasty. He obviously is lacking mobility right now, only having some infantry units on his roster. So you want to limit the ability of those knights to run circles around you. So these walls are definitely beneficial. But Anand still finds an opening, and he managed to kill 8 villagers in this game already. That's very painful for Beasty, especially given that he was on 1 TC for quite a while. Eventually he's going to catch up in villagers, or at least that's what you would think. But reality is that if Anand gets to Imperial, Beasty is going to take a long time to catch up on villagers. Lafa, he's heading out for a hunt. In fact, Anand should probably take the second Sacred Site as well. This is something that I missed very badly in the previous game from him. Beasty's playing a very defensive game. He doesn't really have the army to move out of his base. So here, there's a lot of legitimacy in capturing the Sacred Sites and saying, look, I will force you out of your base. Nice little touch from Beasty having this 1 unit out here to just prevent that and, for the time being, decap the Sacred Site. But the mindset is good here for Anand. Try to force Beasty out of his base, and if he doesn't come out, then, well, you just got the Sacred Site for yourself. There is an extra relic being brought in somewhere by Anand. I thought it's a 3-2 split, but I don't think Beasty lost the relic, right? There's the Shinto Shrine that only has 1 relic inside, so Anand definitely found the relic somewhere, and he just now took it back home. That is making things even worse for Beasty. I was kind of basing my theories upon the assumption that the relic count is fairly even, but 4-1 is nasty, especially when you consider that Anand does have one of the Sacred Sites as well, and he has everything he needs to capture the second one as well. The farm transition is still ugly though. This is exactly where things slow down a little for Anand. If there is any hope for Beasty, it has to be off the back of this moment. Anand having to make a harsh farm transition, whereas Beasty already has a lot of free farms from the Kura storehouse, so his farm transition is a little bit more streamlined. He also needs to mix in some new farms, but having all these farms for free is very good value for Beasty. That Onabugeisha, eliminating the Prelate is just so annoying. Nice little touch from Anand, staying on the sacred site, so he doesn't lose the progress of what he captured. It's only a couple of seconds worth, but tiny details could make the mile. Beasty's building up a respectable force of spearmen, though, and this is where Anand needs to be cautious. He's been tacking into some Landsknechte, and that could be ugly against a strong force of spearmen like this. He's making the perfect counter unit, actually. I don't know if he scouted the massive spearman build-up, and he knows that Beasty isn't making anything else, essentially. Or this is just, you know, him thinking that Beasty's gonna go infantry no matter what, and thinking that Landsknecht will beat any infantry that Beasty can bring. But right now is the best tool. Now he sees the spearmen, the massive amounts of spearmen, nice little raid. Needs to be cautious not to get caught behind these walls. Beasty could try and trap this army over here. Knights could make it out. They could have made it out. Beast is actually pulling back the villagers. Nice little touch once again, picking off a Vil. Anand killed 10 villagers already, but now Beasty has the villager lead. This is a little tricky for Anand. He has invested a massive amount of resources in this army. His army value is almost 6,000 compared to less than 2,000. So now with this investment, you want to get something out of this. If Anand went to Imperial here, he would have a massive villager lead by now. I think his position is still very good. I would love to see him walling in these sacred sites so Beasty cannot just sneak decap them. But yeah, that's the Landsknecht there, and you can hit the stone mine. Obviously, Japanese town centers are a little bit more formidable as defenses, but it looks like Anand is going to go for this one exposed Shinto shrine. He needs a prelate to yoink the Relic. That is such an opportunity, and indeed he is coming in with the Relic. We see Beasty do this very frequently. Sees an exposed Relics, takes advantage of that. That's something that we could see from Anand now. And if he gets up to 5 relics, that is terrifying. He's also sitting on 2 sacred sites. His passive gold income is up in the skies. And he also sees that Beasty doesn't have the army to fight this right now. He does have a Katana Bannerman in here, but that's not going to be enough against that many Landsknechte. And we are now seeing some men-at-arms being mixed in as well. This composition is looking so good right now for Anand compared to what Beasty has. He doesn't want to dive underneath the Shogunate castle now, but I think he shouldn't even. If you're Anand, I think your game plan now is getting some stone and dropping a keep here. You want to finish this game quickly. Upgrade for town center is just now coming in. It was producing a villager. Landsknecht not really fighting the spearmen though. But this DC is now going to be lit ablaze. Beasty is probably going to try and save this, but it's going to be awfully difficult. He's trying to get a tower up, and this upgrade isn't going to finish in time. Beasty will lose his expansion DC. He retains a villager lead of 11, so that's definitely a good sign. And this might be an overzealous attack over here by Anand, fighting underneath the Shogunate Palace. I don't like this, but he might still be okay with this, given that his Landsknecht will just evaporate the army that Beasty has. And this is looking very rough for Beasty. Boy, oh boy, this is it, I feel. Beasty is now being overrun. I felt like Beasty was confined in his base, and his unit composition was just disappointing. Maybe he expected Anand to just go into Imperial like most HRE players would do. Anand instead, playing aggressive, doubled down on this, going very, very heavy on the Knights and the Landsknechte, and now Beasty has to flee. He is trying to get out of this game. This is a decider game, so he's not going to give up on this easily, but his position is substantially more precarious than what it was in the previous game. Speaking of which, in the previous game, it wasn't a crash, it was a GG from Beasty, actually. And I said that in the previous game, of course, we don't see the things that Beasty sees. But in that game, I felt like this might have been a little too early of a GG. And right now in this game, his position is a lot worse than what it was in the previous game. The villager count is dead even, his army count is nowhere close to where it needs to be. Onamusha could salvage the day. They are one of my favorite units, one of the most powerful units for the HRE. It's going to give you mobility and it's going to give you armor-piercing power. And you need both of those right now. That is an extremely valuable unit for Beasty. But I'm worried for Beasty right now, because staying alive is no longer enough. The Sacred Site countdown is down to 7 minutes. Only 2 Sacred Sites, and in fact, I'm surprised Anand didn't wall these in or didn't make a tower nearby or something. But soon that Sacred Site countdown is going to be relevant. And Anand could still go into Imperial. In fact, I think he should. I love how Anand is expanding towards the hunt over here. If he has map control, he should use it. Beast is going to see this expansion, but it's not like he can do much against it right now. Onamusha will give him some much-needed mobility, though, so we could maybe see some sneaky raids coming in, or maybe just sneak out, decap the Sacred Site, play a very long game. Good news for Beastie is that he kind of managed to stabilize himself. He still has a respectable amount of villagers compared to his opponent, but I just don't see any advantages for him right now. That's my problem. I feel like I see a clear-cut way, actually multiple ways for Anand to win this game. Right now, in this very moment, there aren't many ways that Beastie can win this game, aside from essentially staying alive for 20 more minutes. Sacred Sites at 6 minutes. Here come the towers. And this is why I'm advocating so frequently on capturing Sacred Sites. 10 minutes feels like a lot, but especially when your opponent is confined into his base like Beastie is right now, you might as well just do this. Onamusha number is increasing and you don't want to charge against this wall, but that's a massive army count still for Anand. All of these units are heavily armored, so the Onamusha get a very good value for every shot, but still, I feel like this flood of units might just be too much for Beast to handle. He cannot forever retreat with the Onamusha, and if he keeps retreating, he's going to start losing vills. He's also losing out on this gold mine. It's near depletion. Samurai helping out as much as possible, but Anand still has twice the army. Frontline gone, Onamusha will be the next target. Again, I feel like this is a little overzealous of a fight here for Anand, but he has such a big army advantage that I think he can afford to make this. And a lot of villagers will be caught in the crossfire here. Losing many units like this is not really optimal for Anand, but he's killing so much of Beastie's eco. Having said that, that's a large force of Onamusha. And if this army gets cleaned up, the army numbers will equalize. You see the villager count, it's not so far apart. This is why I'm saying that this fight, I think, is overzealous for Anand. He did have a great position. He does have 5 relics as well. He killed 36 villagers compared to 4. But Beastie is still just 7 villagers behind. And when you look at the destroyed value, 14,000 against 8,000, the efficiency was on the side of Beastie. I honestly think that Anand would have benefited more from just keeping Beastie inside his base. It's of course easy to say again, given that we don't see everything that these players see. But I think in this position it would have been a lot better for Anand to focus on the Sacred Sites. Actually fortify them. Now he's thinking about going into Imperial. Towers coming up over here, Spearmen being sent out to decap the Sacred Site. And it's going to be an Archer switch. I'm not a fan of that. I don't like playing HRE Archers. I think at this point it would have been a lot more beneficial to just stay outside the base of Beastie, get some keeps on these Sacred Sites, go into Imperial, play into Culverins, and force Beastie to decap one of those Sacred Sites. You have 4 minutes on this countdown. It is now a legitimate target for Anand. Beastie, on the other hand, he is still alive. He lost 37 villagers, which is absolutely catastrophic, but luckily for him, he's still keeping pace with his opponent, because Anand didn't go into Imperial. Anand is playing 1 TC HRE, and he isn't in Imperial in 23 minutes. 9 out of 10 times, HRE players will use windows like this to get to Imperial, get the Pass of Schwabia out, and go up to like 120 villagers. That eco-escalation is now missing for Anand, and I'm starting to wonder, with all these resources being piled up, if he actually wants to go for the Alsbach Palace. Beast is breaking out of his base over here, trying to decap the Sacred Site. Onamusha taking a decent engagement here. Vicious fight going on for the Sacred Site over here, but Horsemen are now being mixed in. Something that the Onamusha won't be exceptional against. They'll be alright. Archers will also help out in this engagement, but Beastie's army, I like this large group of Onamusha quite a bit. Pass of Schwabia is the landmark of choice. Alright. I guess Anand can still increase his villager count, but I just feel like this landmark comes in way too late. Instead of making 10 additional Landsknechte and diving under this town center, it would have been so much better, I feel, if he went Imperial. He would have gotten the tech upgrades. He would have gotten himself Culverins that he could use to just anti-siege against castles that he's defending the Sacred Sites with. I still feel like he's underplaying the significance of this victory condition. I just don't understand why we don't have a single villager on stone. It's difficult to see, especially when you're actually playing the game. Obviously, we see everything. He does not. He doesn't know the full size of Beastie's army. But I feel like he's fumbling a gigantic opportunity here. The fact that we still just have a single tower in construction on this sacred site, despite him having this for 7 minutes, is nothing short of atrocious. Uma Bannerman also on the way. Once again, Anand is going to have to fight this one. He is coming in with Elite Horsemen, though, and that's where those Onamusha will start falling off a cliff. Sacred Site still under the control of Anand, but as long as it is being decapped, the timer does stop, so that's definitely a bit of a disadvantage there for Anand. Onamusha trying to launch a counterattack. This is exactly what Beasty needs to do. Delay, divert attention away from these positions. And again, it's baffling how little these sacred sites are defended, given the circumstances of this game. Even just a single layer of palisade walls would make life so much easier. Counterattack coming in here from Anand, even dropping a tower on this gold mine, realizing that that is Beasty's lifeline. By the time he arrives, it's going to be too late. This gold mine is going to be depleted, but that's a problem. Because that means that Beasty is going to have access to no gold. He's down to 2 minutes. He's going to Hail Mary this by rushing up the Tanegashima Gunsmith. Uh-oh, Landmark. You gotta be cautious. There are some Landsknechte nearby as well. Landmark should go up, but it's going to cost a couple of villagers for Beasty in a game where he already lost 40. Landmark goes up. 1:45 remaining on the Sacred Site timer. Tower is still incomplete. Wall is nowhere to be found. I feel like even if Anand wins this game, we look back at this and we say, look, this could have been done better. If he loses this game, it's extremely obvious where it went wrong. I'm just very surprised that we don't have a single castle on any of these positions. He could have bought the stone with the gold income he had, but that never was a thing. He would still win a straight-up battle right now, numbers-wise, but Beasty is dropping the castle. Anand needs to go. If this keep goes up, there is a legitimate chance for Beasty to decap this, and we could see a game being salvaged once again by Beasty, off essentially in a very bad position he was. And now he's got some Reboldequins out there that's going to decimate the cavalry. Castle goes up as well. Sacred Site still being held, but this is a lot of infantry. And look at the Reboldequin, just butchering all the infantry here. Beautiful volley after volley fire coming out of this one. Onamusha microed back and forth as well. 45 seconds, soon to be on the clock. Right now it's 50. Castle still stands, but Beasty needs to find a way to at least pause this timer. Needs to get a single unit out on the Sacred Site, but that's difficult to do with the Onamusha. And now Castle is finally dropped here by Anand. 37 seconds remaining. I think this is over. This was the Hail Mary from Beasty. He tried going into Imperial, but it's just not working out. A single villager is holding things for a brief moment, but it is just insufficient. What a game, and really, it comes down to the fact that Anand played relentless in this game. He confined Beasty in his base, but I feel like actually, Beasty is now rallying the villagers. This is a last Hail Mary trying to decap this Sacred Site. If he does it, this is an open game, I feel. But this is just 10 seconds left on the timer. He needs to go right now with everything he's got. That's the only way that he's going to salvage this. Other Sacred Site, no Beasty units nearby. Villagers will rush up on this, but the keep is going up here for Anand as well. And decapping this feels like just a distant dream for Beasty. Nowhere to go, nowhere to hide. The Sacred Site countdown will win. And we see why it's so valuable to take Sacred Sites early. It forces your opponent out of his base. And what seemed like a very far away victory condition for Anand turns into the key to securing this game, and with that, the Sacred Site countdown finishes. Beasty gets taken down in game number 5 here, and with that, Anand is going to be the champion of Draft of Empires. What a lovely, lovely series. Really back and forth in many of the games. We've seen a great showcase of the new civilizations. We've seen a great showcase of some of the old civs facing off against the new civs. But when you look at this game, I think, again, Anand did a lot of things right. I loved his approach of being aggressive in Castle Age. But that dive underneath the enemy town center, I feel like that shouldn't have happened. He actually risked losing this game on the Sacred Site victory condition because he decided to dive underneath the TC. This was kind of this moment-ish. At this moment, he lost essentially all the army advantage he had. He actually went into Imperial, but if this was the moment where he just says, okay, I'm going to Turtle, I'm going to start fortifying these positions, going to Imperial, Beastie would have had a much tougher time doing anything in this game. And when you look at Beastie, it's a tough call to make. I feel like a lot came down to the fact that this Civilization matchup is still somewhat unexplored. Obviously, it wasn't beneficial for Beastie that he missed out on the majority of the relics. He even lost the one relic that he managed to capture. But I think it was more about the fact that Anand did something that's not super common with HRE, which is full Castle Age aggression. I think Anand would have had a great position in this game, even if he went into Imperial. But I think, given that, in a position that Anand was in, going fast Imperial Pass of Swabia is the most common way to play. Maybe Beastie anticipated less aggression coming from Anand, and his Spearman army was definitely unprepared for the onslaught coming in from the Man-at-Arms and the Landsknechte. Ultimately, he didn't have a force that was capable of holding off this initial assault. He lost a significant portion of his eco, essentially all the numerical eco advantage that he had, and from that point on, recovery was just a distant dream. With that, this series ends a lovely, lovely finish to what was an amazing set, very back and forth. Congratulations to both of these players. Once again, huge shout out goes to Blade for putting this tournament together. Once again, all the corresponding links will be down in the description of this video. If you want to check him out, make sure you share some love to him as well for putting this tournament together. And if you enjoyed this video, I greatly appreciate if you throw a like to this one. If you subscribe to the channel, you will also get notified of future casts I make. And I hope to see you in the next cast. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.